All right, guys, in today's video, we're going to do a maintenance on this engine on this 2013 Chevrolet Avalanche truck, and you can see it's time for an oil change. So I'm going to show you two things here. I'm going to show you just real simple how you reset this change engine oil soon message, and then we'll just go through the oil and filter change on this all aluminum block RPO LC9 V8. So stay tuned. All right, so let's reset this message. So to reset this message, if you have the DIC buttons like this vehicle does here, then what we're going to be doing is taking this information button and we're going to cycle through till we get to the oil life percentage setting. And when we get to that setting, we're going to press and hold this check, which is a reset button, to set it back to 100%. So let's cycle back over, or excuse me, let's sweep back over to the instrument count, display, and I'm going to press that information button and we're going to cycle this through. Now we're at 0% oil life remaining. If we zoom in there a little bit, and now I'm going to press and hold the reset button. And now we're at 100%. So it's that simple to reset it. If you don't have the DIC buttons, and some trucks of the years this video covers do not, then what you will have is you'll have a trip meter reset button. This vehicle doesn't have it, so I can't show it to you, but if you've got it, you'll know that you have it. And you'll use pressing the trip meter reset button to cycle through to that same setting I just showed you there. And then you'll hold that trip meter reset button in to reset the oil life to 100%. So now let's go about changing the oil and filter on this particular engine. All right, guys, the first thing we're going to locate is the oil filler tube on this particular engine. It's going to be located on the passenger side, as you see in this video clip here. If we come in and zoom in, two things that you're going to take note of on top of the cap. It's going to tell you the weight of the oil you need to use, 5W30. This dexos mark is GM's brand name for their synthetic type oil. You're going to want to get a 5W30 that carries this dexos brand mark. I like to keep this open before we go down to let air in and let it drain faster. Let's go down underneath and show you the location of the drain plug, and we'll get that popped off. All right, guys, the drain plug is located obviously underneath the vehicle, and you're going to find it for this particular engine by looking for this cross member that goes left to right. It's going to be sitting right in front of this cross member that goes from the left and the right side of the vehicle, and there's the 15mm drain plug bolt right there. Now I'm laying at an awkward angle here, and we don't have it on ramps. So I'm going to cheat a little bit to break the torque with this deadbolt hammer. Pull your drain pan back over in the position, and we'll go ahead and let this drain out. Now remember, it's going to kind of arc like this, so make sure you plan on that when you put your drain plug, your drain pan below this. Go ahead and get this guy off and let him start going. And try not to drop it in the pan, I guess. There we go. So that's about the arc you're going to get for this particular engine and how high it is off the ground. So let's let that drain off, and let's go back on and get going on the filter on the other side. All right, guys, we're down to the final drips here. It's time to put this plug back in. I want to take a look at the gasket that's installed on the other side here, underside rather, of the drain plug, and make sure it's present and not torn or ripped. I'm going to spin this guy in, wipe up a little of the excess there, and then we're going to torque it down to 18 foot-pounds per the GM factory service manual for this particular engine. And then after this, we'll be able to start putting in the new oil. Move our pan a little bit out of the way so we get a bigger arc for this torque wrench. There we go, 18 foot-pounds. All right, let's go up on top side again. All right, guys, a quick check of the service manual for this particular year, but for the whole range of these vehicles for the video title this information is going to cover. We're going to look at the torque values here. So if we come over and take a look at the fastener section for this 5.3 liter engine, we can see the oil filter here is either 30 Newton meters or 22 foot-pounds of torque. So there's a torque value on the oil filter for this particular engine. And then the oil pan drain plug, 25 Newton meters or 18 foot-pounds on that 15mm fastener. And then just over here, just to show you another example of the oil filter, right? So they're going on and replacing the oil filter in this particular area here. Lubricate the seal with engine oil, install it, and tighten the filter to 22 foot-pounds. And this is why you'll need a special tool to get that torque value if you want to use the torque value. All right, guys, we're going to come over to the driver's side of the engine, and you can see the oil filter is right here. Just going to zoom in a little bit. I'll show you taking this guy off now. Now, this particular engine, you can see the shape on the back side of the oil pan. You can't get your hand in here to grab this. So you're going to have to use a tool. Even if you thought it was something that you could manhandle off, you're going to have to use a tool. I'm going to be using one of these tools that's got a fluted end on it in order to grab the bottom of the oil filter and work it off. And I'll show you this tool I'm using as soon as we get this guy off. Again, just lying on your back here to show you don't need ramps, you don't need jack stands. But it is messy, this position of this oil filter being down like this. So again, make sure your pan's in the right position. Get yourself a rag. As you can see, it's going to be a super messy job. What I like to do is just let this all run out, and then we'll go ahead and grab it, spin it the rest of the way off. I much more prefer the engine designs that have the filter mounted horizontally rather than this type. And bonus points if you don't drop it in to the drain pan. All right, so we're going to let this guy drain off, and I'll show you the new filter that we're going to use. All right, guys, this is the tool that I'm using to change both to remove and to torque down the oil filter on this engine. This is an aftermarket tool, but it's made to be very similar to what they would use in the GM dealerships. This is a 905. I'll put a link in the description. It has 15 flutes on it, and those flutes are designed to fit into the flutes on the end of the AC Delco oil filters, just like that. And the reason this works better than what you'd pick up in the local auto parts store is when you go to the auto parts store, typically these things are made to cover a range of diameters. This is a fixed size that only fits this type of oil filter. You know, it fits any that has the exact same number of flutes in the exact same diameter, but it's not meant to handle any others. And so a special purpose tool like this is not something you'd find at your local auto parts store. They want to sell you something that fits a broader range of brands and filters, and what will happen is you can't torque with those because they'll slip. The only thing I don't like about this particular tool is it comes with a 1/2-inch type of drive head, so you end up having to put a 1/2 to 3/8 on there typically, because that's what I prefer to use for this type of torque, being only 22 foot-pounds. It fits the wrench. Anyway, let's go down there and torque up our filter. All right, guys, the OEM filter for this engine is an AC Delco PF48. It's got a GM number of 12710960. Put some links in the description if you're looking for this. This is the current packaging, where it says genuine GM OEM parts, and it'll have some writing in different languages. This is what the packaging currently looks like from General Motors. This particular filter is made in the USA, and it's going to look like this on the bottom. This basically replaced the old design that used to be known as a PF48E. Now you can have a higher upgraded filter that's known as a UPF48R, and that's an Ultra Guard type of AC Delco filter. Instead of being blue, it'll be black. It's also made in the USA, and it'll have a much more robust and thicker metal housing. Overall, this is a much better filter in terms of the filtering density and construction, but it also costs more. Either of these two types of filters will service this particular engine. All right, guys, we've got the sidewall of the pan cleaned up, and we're cleaning up right here in the back corner where we can't normally get to. And we might not be able to get brake clean squirted back up in there when we get done with this project. Just to get all that cleaned up, we're going to take our new filter, and we're just going to coat the gasket with oil, and then we're going to spin it on. Now we're going to put our tool up on here and give ourselves the 22 foot-pounds of torque that the service manual specifies using this tool. There we go. All right, now we can refill her. All right, guys, now we're just going to hose it down with some brake clean. Get it all cleaned off. This particular engine's got a leak somewhere up on the main seal. I'll let the owner know, but we'll clean this all up around there for them as well. And then we'll go on the other side and clean up around the drain plug. All right, guys, let's consult the service manual one more time to get the oil capacity for this particular engine. Now, all the engines are going to be different, so we're going to look now, instead of where the torque fasteners are all the same, this is going to be something specific. So RPO LC9, which means it's got a 7 in the 8th position of the VIN code, tells us that that's what engine is on this particular truck. And if we go into this section, we can see that the oil capacity with a filter change is 6 quarts. So that's how much we're going to expect to put back in here. You know, just turning another page here just to show you for this particular year. It can vary by earlier years. You can see, again, that 8th position of the VIN. A 7 is an RPO LC9 engine, which is an all-aluminum block, all-aluminum heads, which is what this one is we're showing today. It can also be a 0 in the 8th position. Same displacement, but that would be an RPO LMG. This is going to be a cast iron block. And so just for comparison, if we go back and take a look at that engine's capacity, let's see how that compares. So we'll go back here and we'll find the LMG engine. Here's LMG. Gotta go back one more page to find what we're looking for, though. And the oil capacity on here, it turns out, is the same. So I just wanted to double check that. So if you have the cast iron one, it's also going to be 6 quarts on that 5.3 liter. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and put in 6 quarts here of dexos 1 Gen 3. Gen 3 is the current iteration of this spec. I'll put a little graphic up here in the video so you know what you're looking for. That would be the latest type of oil. Some off-brands might not be up to Gen 3. They might still be on Gen 2 or something even older. Let's go ahead and get this in, and let me show you something else that you're going to want to do after you get this oil put into the engine. All right, guys, given the age of these vehicles, what I recommend with every oil change is to put a bottle of this AC Delco Fuel System Treatment Plus for gasoline engines in there. That's an AC Delco 10-3012 number or a GM 8886 5595. It helps cut down on the accumulation of deposits that can get on the inside of your fuel injectors as well as in the combustion chamber area itself. All right, guys, after we put in the 5-quart container, I like to take a 1-quart container and not put it all in. That's the 6-quart, but sometimes you may have a little less or too much. We first got to get some oil into that new oil filter. We're going to line up this little notch right there with this little dot that you see there. Push it down and twist it back on so the writing faces the front. We're going to go ahead and give it a quick start and fill up the oil filter, and then we'll check the level. All right, guys, we zoom in here on the dipstick. When you put fresh oil in here, this particular type of dipstick can be hard to read. Now just ignore there's a little varnish streak right up by the top 4th dot right there. But what you want to look at is you can see the dark amber color of the new oil. You just kind of twist it around so you can get the shine. And you can see it's just a hair above the 4th dot, right? Not enough to really be concerned with. You want to try and get it right around that 4th dot. And something else I want to point out of this particular engine, these dots do not represent quarts. These are fractions of a quart. In fact, these 4 dots together would add up to about a quart, right? So when you come up here and you find yourself maybe right down here on the 2nd dot, that doesn't mean that you add anything more than 2/4 of a quart container to get back up here. You should go very slow, like 4 ounces at a time until you bring it up to where you want. But at this point, we've got it where we want it. We're happy with it. Going to insert this guy back in. And that is a wrap on today's video. I hope this helped you out. Spent some time on the type of oil to use, particular weight, the particular classification. This is going to be a dexos 1. This dexos, there's several flavors of it, but for this engine, it's dexos with a 1 Gen 3. And again, earlier I put the logo up there that you should look for on whatever brand of oil you use. The torque values, if that's something that is concerned for you, that you like to have the torque values, I provide those as well. If you found this video useful or it saved you some money and taught you how to do something with a new truck or a truck that you just haven't changed the oil on before, take time to hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. It helps YouTube with the discovery of the video, and it's a good way to pay it forward for my providing this information to you. And as always, thanks for watching.